introduce today's speaker. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Betsy through our involvement in Leadership Columbus as the class of 2015. And immediately upon meeting her, and you'll soon realize she'll bring a great energy and passionate perspective to the Short North and its role in the small business community. A little bit of background on Betsy. She is the Executive Director of the Short North Alliance. She oversees a $1 million operating budget, a team of 10, all district operations, artistic and cultural program development, strategic marketing, fundraising, and board relations for both the Short North Alliance and Short North Special Improvement District. I'm exhausted just saying all that. Prior to joining the Short North Alliance, Betsy has done community relations for Columbus Public Health's Healthy Places program. She's a lifelong Columbus resident with over 10 years of experience working in the creative sector, most notably Kappa and the Wexner Center for the Arts. Betsy holds a Bachelor's of Arts and a Master of City and Regional Planning degrees, both from The Ohio State University. So please join me in welcoming Betsy Pandora to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We got to bring this mic way down. There we go. It's so nice to be here. I love speaking to groups like this, and I think so highly of the Columbus Rotary. We've been very fortunate in the Short North Arts District to have what was the Capitol Square Rotary move into our neighborhood and rename as the Short North Rotary, and we just think that the work of this organization is so important, and it's a true pleasure. I am so happy to be here today to talk with all of you about one of my favorite topics, which is the Short North Arts District. Show of hands, who knows where the Short North Arts District is? Is this an unfamiliar topic to anyone? Good. Who lives in the Short North Arts District or maybe in some of the surrounding neighborhoods? Basically all the folks that I all know here, great. And who lives in the downtown area? We'll work on them, Cleve. We'll work on getting those numbers up for all of us. Great. So I think what's really exciting about the Short North Arts District and what I want to share with all of you today is that it's really a story of Columbus. And its history and evolution is so important in the development and growth of our own community that I don't think everyone is fully aware of. So I love sharing that story, and I'm happy to do that today. I think what's also exciting about the Short North Arts District in its own modern history is that it very much so as a neighborhood has grown to embody the idea of service above self, which is what all of you are here to share in. And I think that you'll hear about some of the revitalization efforts that very much so embody those ideals. So that's exciting too. So the Short North Arts District, like I said, is very much so rooted in the history of Columbus. And I think when we think today of neighborhoods and of places in the city of Columbus, they didn't necessarily always take on these discrete identities that we refer to them as by today, the Short North or Franklinton or Clintonville or the Arena District or all of these districts that we've come up with and how they've gotten these names. I think that's a bit of a modern convention. And so really the history of the Short North is of Columbus's as a whole. Columbus is 200 plus years old now. In the founding of Columbus, what we think of as the Short North, which is, as I like to call it, beautifully situated between downtown Columbus and the Ohio State University campus, that was our city. That was just the city of Columbus. It housed so many things. The pre-World War II boundary of Columbus was actually 5th Avenue, right in the Short North Arts District. So it was truly our own community and has such a rich history of things that have been founded and occurred in Columbus. One of the things that I think is interesting about our own community and how it's ebbed and flowed and evolved is as we think of the modern history of the Short North and it being a revitalized neighborhood, much of what accounted for and caused that revitalization was how we grew and evolved as a community. Really starting in the post-World War II era, we saw a dramatic change in character in our city of Columbus, and in particular, our downtown areas. One of the things that really influenced that was the notion of the American dream and what that meant post-World War II, and how that changed patterns of consumption and where we wanted to live and how we wanted to get around. I loved hearing Levi talk a little bit about transit, and even though that went in the roller coaster direction just a second ago, Columbus had streetcars. We had some really great things that I think we've been working very hard to get back. Back in the 20th century, the pre-20th century. And so with respect to the Short North Arts District, post-World War II, people started to leave the downtown core. They started not to want to live in this area. They started to move out to the suburbs. We saw a dramatic shift and change in how people got around. We had the interstate highways develop. We had a change in housing preference. And all of those things had a significant impact on our downtown and surrounding neighborhoods. So really by the mid to late 1960s and into the 1970s, the Short North, which wasn't called the Short North at that time, it was actually the near north side of Columbus, experienced quite a bit of vacancy and people leaving that neighborhood. And the term, the Short North, comes from the police precinct at that time, referring to the northern portion of downtown as just short north of the precinct. So that's where the name comes from. And the near north side experienced quite a bit of disinvestment as an area. It would have looked probably very similar to what you see on South Parsons today. It had pawn shops and used furniture shops and used car shops, and isn't necessarily this vibrant jewel for tourism and living that we think of in Columbus now. As the neighborhood changed in character and as it became more of a dangerous place, the birth of the historic preservation movement is really what was instrumental in saving it and bringing it back. In the late 1970s is when we started to see reinvestments in historic neighborhoods, both in and around Columbus and in particular in the Short North Arts District. And what we saw in the German Village area really spread into our neighborhood. People taking a look at place, saying this is something that needs to be saved, this is what defines us and is an integral part of our community history. And we saw historic preservationists do a lot of work to save the residential buildings and the surrounding neighborhoods just off of High Street, namely in Italian Village and in Victorian Village. And then we saw people begin to really take a look strategically at the High Street corridor for its placement between downtown and the University District as an important place, not just only to save, but also to cause our community to have great investment and to revitalize our downtown Columbus area. So a lot of things went into revitalizing the Short North, from historic preservation efforts to some really forward-thinking developers and small businesses taking a look at High Street and envisioning what it could be. One of the first types of businesses that started to invest in High Street were art galleries. And a company called the Wood Companies was very instrumental in rehabbing commercial space and making them affordable and accessible to all types of businesses. So in the early 1980s, we see the near north side of Columbus become known as the Short North Arts District. We're very happy to be celebrating the 30th anniversary of an event that those businesses came together to create called Gallery Hop this year. It's been going for 30 strong years. Who all has been to Gallery Hop before? There's a few hands we need to get raised, so please make sure to come down. Parking isn't as challenging as you may think it is, don't worry. But events played a critical role in the revitalization of the neighborhood and in businesses and individuals choosing to live in the area as well. A Gallery Hop being one of them, ComFest being another, the Doodah Parade being another, our Columbus Pride Parade also being another. And slowly but surely you saw throughout the 1980s and into the 1990s businesses moving in and claiming the Short North Arts District as an incredibly vibrant spot in our community and becoming a small business hub here in Columbus. Going forward to today, we have grown exponentially since then. We have over 300 businesses on the High Street corridor. We up from 150 just about 10 years ago. Businesses on High Street, 95% of them are small businesses or locally owned or headquartered or Ohio-based businesses. We have not just art galleries, but incredible restaurants, incredible fashion boutiques, amazing retail and phenomenal nightlife, and just about every type of thing you can imagine you can truly find in so many ways in the Short North Arts District now. One of the things that we are particularly proud of are the public art and improvements that my organization has been able to impart on the neighborhood. I run a group called the Short North Alliance. The Short North Alliance is a nonprofit that is affiliated with another group called the Short North Special Improvement District. We work to fund public improvements and maintain the public right-of-way in the Short North Arts District. One of the most significant projects that our group did back in the early 2000s was the Short North Arches, which we very much so regard to as a public art project, but also they're an important marker of the history of our great city. Columbus was once known as the Arch City. Beautiful gaslit arches were all over our streets, and we love commemorating that in the Short North Arts District every day. We also promote the neighborhood. We support the small business community. We run events like Gallery Hop, another event that is celebrating its 8th anniversary this year, Highball. Anyone been to or familiar with Highball? Less so, okay. So Highball is growing in reputation. It is nationally known. USA Today has called it one of the most elaborate Halloween and costume parties in the country. Fox News has written about it, and it is an event that grew out of the neighborhood to celebrate all of the diverse art forms and professions that we have among our business community, namely in fashion and the arts. It is the nation's fiercest costume party, as we say, and it happens right on High Street in the neighborhood. This year it's October 23rd and 24th. So we do a lot. We have a lot on the horizon. The Short North, like much of Columbus, is experiencing a real development boom right now. We have a ton of infill development happening in the neighborhood that we think is a good thing. We think it's contributing to the advancement of Columbus as a whole. We're going to have more people living in the Short North, more people living in and around the downtown areas. That's going to contribute, we think, to advanced conversations about public transportation and the continued resurgence and vibrancy of our great and urban city. I am happy to entertain some questions from all of you about the Short North Arts District and where it is and where it's going and the work of our organization in working to promote it. Yes, please.
You touched on the parking issue downtown, which I know discourages some people from trying to get down there. What are some of the longer-term solutions you see coming down the pike to address that?
Sure. So part of it is Columbus is in a bit of a growing pain right now, and that we are really and rapidly becoming a more urban city. I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're expected to surpass a metro area population of 1 million. And part of the challenges that we see in the Short North are related to us needing to maybe change our own behaviors or adapt our own behaviors to the new environment and a more urban environment that we're going to have here in Columbus. So with respect to the Short North, we are almost complete with a parking study for the neighborhood. That parking study is taking a look at a lot of different solutions. A little bit of that is adding capacity, adding more spaces. We just had 2 parking garages open within the last 18 months. An 800-space parking garage will open by December 1st that the convention center is building on Gooddale. And it's likely that we'll see structured garage parking included with other developments that are happening along High Street. So we're adding capacity to the system, but part of it is changing our mode. And things like the C-Bus, which is almost celebrating a year, have done phenomenal have done a phenomenal job of educating people in our community what public transit is and why that could be an incredible thing. And if you choose to live in and around the urban areas and much of Columbus, which is very transit connected, you will have better options. So we're looking at making some adjustments, but it truly isn't as difficult to find parking as I think many experience or may perceive in the short north. It just comes down to tolerance and your willingness to be able to look a little bit for it and spend a little bit more time in finding it. And it's incumbent upon my organization, with good partnerships with the city, to make sure that people have great information about parking, but also have information about taking the transit, riding their bike, and just taking a walk. Yes?
One of the things, when I talk to persons who own art galleries or whatever in the short north, they're very concerned that they're getting moved north in the short north and basically are not able to handle the rents or find spaces south of Buttles anymore in the original, what they might call the original short north area. Are you trying to do anything working with landlords to see, to try and keep, you know, the art galleries and other artistic retail places there in that original area?
Sure. So there's a couple elements to that. The first is we very much so embrace the idea that the short north and its traditional geography has expanded. And what we think of as the Short North Arts District goes from Goodale all the way up to King Avenue. And we think that's a good thing. We think that seeing, and we now can accommodate it, such a dense amount of businesses in what is just under a mile area really supports all of them. So we haven't seen any kind of mass change or movement or migration of galleries up the street. We've seen new galleries open in the northern end of the district. And what we actually had 3 art galleries open in the last year, which is exciting. Where there have been issues, and you know, to be frank, there's been issues, but it's not just in terms of rental increases with galleries. It's all types of businesses may experience something like that. Where there are issues and it makes sense for the Alliance to get involved in having a conversation, we absolutely do. More holistically, we're involved in developing a neighborhood plan for the Short North that helps us come together as a community and say, what do we want to be in 10 years? What do we want to be in 30 years? What's the next 30 years look like for the Short North Arts District and surrounding neighborhoods? And how can we make sure that there's policies that we put in place now, programs that we put in place now, and land use that supports all of that? So there's a bit of a perception out there that we've seen just this mass loss of galleries or that we're not an arts district anymore, and that's not necessarily the most accurate one. What we see is we've got great arts offerings. We've got more than just galleries. We've got the Short North Stage and 2 resident performance groups and tons of spaces, hundreds of spaces that showcase the work of visual artists and performing artists throughout the neighborhood. So we're mindful of it and we're engaged in that conversation, but a dire situation is not one that's the reality in the Short North. Yes, Peter.
As speaking for Short North Stage, which is one of those arts organizations, what we've been able to accomplish in the last 5 years would not have been possible without the Short North Alliance. So a big public thank you to Betsy and the Short North Alliance, because it would not have been possible. And we grew from an organization that had a $4,000 a year budget in 2010 to a $600,000 budget in 2014. So that's the type of explosive growth that is possible still in the Short North. Having said that, you know, we think of the theater as a window on the world, but it's also the window on how the world looks at Columbus. So everybody's got to be involved. It can't just be, you know, the Short North residents and the Alliance. The whole city, the whole Central Ohio community can be involved in that process, because that's what it's going to take to make that a world-class district. And that's what I think the goal is.
I didn't plant Peter there. I just want you all to know that. Full disclosure. Yes.
As a consultant to the Short North Stage, I would say that we're going to have 3 restaurants in Columbus who will provide dinner for you, and then theater at the Short North Stage, starting with their A-Chorus line for a price-fixed meal at Ridgby's, at Barcelona, at Spaggio's, which will give you an opportunity to bring the wife or the husband, and for 2 of you, come in there at $120 for both theater and a very good meal at Rigsby's or one of these other restaurants. So, as Peter said, we have to up the patron activity in the Short North Stage for outstanding regional theater in which they bring people in from Chicago and New York to perform. So we hope we can see some of my fellow Rotarians there.
Yeah, yes, please.
The impact of the cap on Short North, can you address it?
Absolutely. I think one of the most instrumental players in making that project happen is sitting behind you, so I may defer to him to jump in there a little bit, but the Short North Cap, I think, has been transformative, and there have been a number of projects that have kind of been game-changing and transformative for the modern revitalization of the neighborhood. The first being the convention center and it developing and becoming a much more high street fronting facility. The second being the North Market and the city reinvesting very strategically in it. And then the third being the Short North Cap. Prior to, what was it, 2002, 3, when the cap was fully completed? Cleve, am I getting my years right? About right. You had a highway overpass that was chain link and unfriendly, and feels very much so like if you're walking along 3rd Avenue into German Village right now, it's a terrible connection into downtown. And so the forethought and the vision that went into thinking about putting 2 buildings on their side on a bridge to create not just a pedestrian gateway to our main artery of visitors coming into this community at any given time, but then to fill it with retail, fill it with restaurants and spaces where people could then gather is nothing short of genius, and it's been cited as an incredible tool in literature and in among organizations that look at that level of community revitalization across the country. So it's been instrumental in reattaching the Short North to downtown Columbus and in creating a pipeline for how visitors can access the neighborhood as a whole, and is probably one of the largest contributors to why we started to see businesses moving up High Street farther north, because we have the need. We have people need to go places, and we have an incredible opportunity to provide great businesses for them to visit. Yes, Doug.
So, I'm just curious what the Short North Alliance is doing about the increased density of restaurants and bars in the neighborhood and its negative effects on the people living there.
So we think bars and restaurants are great. We also think art galleries are great. We think that retail is great. We think that a balanced neighborhood is what is great. And one of the things that we see specifically with bars and restaurants is that they have a little bit higher level of impact on parking than any other land use that we have in the neighborhood. So part of what I think is being done to help control their continued development is a parking solution, and making sure that if we are granting parking variances, that there's some considerations given to land use. And part of it is the market, right? The market will ultimately determine just how many bars and restaurants this one area can support. And we've got a lot, but they still occupy less than 23% of the total businesses that we have in and around the Short North, in the Short North and just off of High Street area. So on the one hand, we're conscious of their continued development and are really making some strides in terms of advocacy around that parking issue, but on the other hand, the market will ultimately dictate just how many of them can exist and exist well in the neighborhood. Yes?
A couple of things I'd like to maybe call attention to is, I was wondering if your organization can work with the city to make that east side of High Street, right in front of the convention center, a little more walker friendly. And by that I mean there's really no readily discernible entrance to that convention center. But there's some alcoves that can be developed with kiosk type little businesses, or maybe a canopy or something like that. First of all, to call attention to where in the heck you have to go into the convention so visitors can know. And the other is so that you can walk knowing that you don't have to walk a quarter mile to the next door. You can just find some stuff there. Second, I wonder if the study would encompass some ways of east-west, maybe making a few of the smaller east-west streets walk streets without traffic. And that would play into what you trade off with your parking study, because you'd have to give those either residents or cars that usually park with some kind of permit in the garage or something. But a walking street, for example, in the example of European walking streets, might alleviate, because right now we're still thinking of the High Street corridor and everything else is secondary.
I would say stay tuned.
For the first question you asked, I think we'll have a lot to say about that very thing, and soon. As far as pedestrian alleys go, we've got 2 that we know of that will probably come online as actually pedestrian alleys, not in total the entire street, but portions of those streets. Prescott being one of them, and Malay Alley, which is just next to the new hotel and office building that was developed. It will not be 100% for pedestrian traffic all the time, but it will. There'll be periods of time when it is exclusively pedestrian. So we're thinking about those things, and they're great points and important things. I think, though, that I might have to be cut off.
Thank you for coming and speaking.
Thank
and this
you
is
for
a
having me.
gift from Argo and Lane
Oh, my
Jeweler for
goodness.
you
Thank
for coming
you.
and
Oh, this is
making a
heavy.
good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'll take my water. I'm happy to answer some questions later.
Please come and join us next week to hear Dr. Bruce Vanderhoff speak about the new reality of healthcare.